Everyone in Canada watched Don Messer's Jubilee, and Randy Bachman was one of them. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Canada. In the 1960s, Don Messer's Jubilee was a staple in Canadian television, like Tommy Hunter. I remember on the weekends, I was a teenager, and even before I was a teen, I didn't want to watch it. I hated it. I went, isn't there anything else? But there was nothing else on. As I got older, I started, my palate started being more sophisticated. And I really didn't want Tommy Hunter or Don Messer. And then I got a little older, and I started getting, in spite of myself, an appreciation for what they presented in the Canadian culture of music. Well, when I was talking to Randy Bachman, even he mentioned Don Messer and a little inspiration and a change in direction he got from that fiddle player.
Well, I grew up playing violin. So from the age of about 5.5 or 6 till about 14, I played violin, classical violin. So it was very, very restricted and very strict. The Royal Conservatory of Music, you had to play the notes on the page, you had to stand properly, and you got examined once a year by a board of directors, and it was absolutely frightening and terrible. My fun thing was watching the Tommy Hunter show on TV. When King Ganem was on, he'd play fiddle. People would go crazy. They would dance to the fiddle rather than sit there and applaud like classical music.
Yeah.
Or the Don Messer Jubilee used to be on every Saturday night. I used to watch that, and Don Messer would play, and he had like 3 or 4 guys playing fiddle, and everyone would do this dance. And I wanted to play music people dance to.
Randy Bachman loves to talk about his musical mentor, Lenny Breau, who died at 43. Did he drown? Was he murdered? There was a lot of substance abuse problems. He was a musical genius, but he really did teach Randy Bachman an awful lot.
You hear so many stories about people who are tortured souls and people who are, geniuses, the Bill Evans, the Miles Davis. You hear all these stories about people who have this incredible talent and hyper-focus. Did you ever think he was like sort of an intense guy when you met him, though, because of the fact that he had such hyper-focus on the instrument?
Yeah, he was very, very intense. I would go over to his house every day at about 1 o'clock. I'd go to school in the morning. My parents didn't know I was doing this. I'd go to school in the morning, go to my girlfriend's for lunch. Their mother would make us lunch. They would go back to school. I'd go to Lenny's. He'd just be getting up because he would have played a gig the night before. So he's 16, I'm 15. From 1 o'clock till about 4:30, I'm at his house, watching him, learning, playing with him. He'd tell me to play chords. He'd solo over it. Then he'd play the chords and ask me to solo over it. And basically it was guys having fun. I'd go home at 4:30 like I had been at school. My parents had no idea I was skipping school. I did this for like a year and a half. I flunked grade 10. I flunked grade 11. It was the 2 greatest years of my life. I was, in school with Lenny Breau. And sometimes I would leave him at 4:30, and I would go home and have dinner, and I would come back on my bike at night to see the girlfriends across the street, pop in to see him, and he would be doing the same thing at 10 or 11 at night. He really practiced 8 and 10 and 12 hours a day. And then once he mastered flamenco and jazz and all this stuff, and then he started to say, I want to be a one-man band. I want to play like Chet Atkins, lead, rhythm, and chord, but I'm going to put an extra string on my guitar so I can play more melody, put a 7-string on, and I'm going to play guitar like I'm Bill Evans on piano. And he put these chords together and walking bass lines and harmonic chimes and everything. And I would sit there saying to him, why do you want to do this? Why don't you just get a bass player? Because I need to do it, man. I need to do it. And he created this thing that everyone now knows as the Lenny Breau style of guitar playing. He created, just like Chet Atkins and Merle Travis did and Les Paul, they made their own thing. Do you know what I mean?
Where do you think he'd be now if he'd be alive?
He'd be in the top, 3 or 4 or 5 in the world.
Yeah.
He would be revered with Montoya, with Segovia, with Pat Metheny, with, the greats. The greats would all be bowing down to him. He'd be up there with the Chet Atkins.
The new Randy Bachman documentary, simply titled Bachman, looks back at his rise to fame growing up in Winnipeg. Lenny Breau, of course. Neil Young's on there. Peter Frampton. Alex Lifeson of Rush. Buffy St. Marie. His bandmates. And you see the big house. When Bachman Turner Overdrive really got really big, you got to see this documentary. Even if you don't like Randy Bachman for this huge rock and roll house. He's such an interesting figure. Many sides to Randy Bachman, but check out the documentary. It's available on iTunes, Amazon Prime Video, Google Play, and of course it's on DVD. Plus, it's on the documentary channel in Canada. By George By Bachman is Randy's brand new album, which is a tip of the hat to George Harrison, There'll be information on how you can pick up the album in the description of this video. This is a 10-part series. There's 5 parts on this channel and 5 parts on our big channel. We've got this big rock channel called Rock History Music. There'll be links in the description of this video where you can see more of our interview with Randy Bachman. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Canada.